evening was calm, and the city lights sparkled like tiny stars against the dark sky. In the heart of the city stood one of the most expensive restaurants, a place where only the wealthy or the bold dared to walk in. The chandeliers shone brightly, the tables were decorated with roses, and soft music played in the background. Guests arrived in fancy cars, wearing elegant dresses and sharp suits. For most of them, this was a normal night, but for Anna, it was something very different. Anna was not used to places like this. She worked as a cleaner in a hotel. Every day she scrubbed floors, polished glass, and washed away the dirt that others left behind. Her hands were rough and her clothes were simple. But that night she wore her best dress, a plain blue one she had bought after saving for months. It was not designer, but it was neat and clean. She had put on a little makeup and borrowed a small purse from her friend. Tonight was special. She was on a blind date. Anna's friend had convinced her to try it. "You never know. Maybe you will find someone who truly cares for you," her friend had said. So with hope in her heart and nervousness in her steps, she entered the grand restaurant. As she walked inside, she could feel eyes on her. Some people gave her polite glances, but others looked at her as if she did not belong there. She ignored it and sat down at the table reserved under her date's name. On the other side of the room, Daniel, a millionaire businessman, entered quietly. He was tall, dressed in a simple but expensive black suit. Unlike many wealthy men, Daniel was not interested in showing off. He had built his fortune through years of hard work, starting from nothing. Few people knew that he had once been poor, working as a dishwasher just to pay his rent. That memory never left him, even though now he owned companies and properties. He came to the restaurant that night only to relax after a busy day. As Daniel settled at his table, his sharp eyes scanned the room, not out of pride but habit. That was when he noticed Anna. She sat nervously, her fingers twisting together, her eyes searching the entrance again and again. Daniel could see she was not like the other women in the room. There was a certain innocence in her, a quiet strength hiding behind her shy smile. He thought to himself, "She doesn't belong here, but she's trying so hard." Something about her reminded him of his own past. Minutes later, Anna's blind date arrived. He was a tall man in a flashy suit with too much cologne and an arrogant smile. At first glance, he looked like the perfect gentleman, but his eyes told another story. He walked straight to Anna's table, paused, and gave her a quick look from head to toe. His smile turned into a smirk. "You're the one?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Anna nodded politely and stood up to greet him. "Yes, I'm Anna." He laughed softly but loud enough for others to hear. "Wow, my friend really set me up with a cleaner?" Anna froze. Her chest tightened and her hands trembled slightly. She hadn't told him about her job yet. "How did he know? I work in a hotel," she said quietly, trying to stay calm. The man raised his eyebrows and shook his head. "A hotel cleaner on a blind date in this place? This must be a joke." Several people around the restaurant turned their heads. Some whispered, some giggled. Anna's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. She looked down at her lap, wishing the floor would open and swallow her whole. From across the room, Daniel watched everything. His jaw tightened. He had seen arrogance many times in his life, but he had also seen dignity in unexpected places. He saw how Anna lowered her eyes, not because she was guilty, but because she was being crushed by someone else's pride. He remembered the times people had laughed at him when he was poor, when he wore second-hand clothes, when he could not even afford a proper meal. Inside Daniel, something stirred. He couldn't look away. Meanwhile, Anna's date leaned back in his chair, still smirking. "Listen," he said loudly. "I like women who can match my lifestyle. You don't look like you even belong here. Why waste my time?" His voice carried across the room. A few more diners turned to watch. Anna wanted to disappear. Her heart pounded, her throat burned, but she kept quiet. She told herself not to cry. Daniel put down his glass of wine slowly. His eyes were fixed on the scene. He was a man who rarely interfered in other people's affairs, but something about this felt personal. He could not stand the injustice. Anna sat there in silence, staring at the tablecloth, trying to hold on to the little pride she had left. She thought of leaving, but her legs felt too heavy. All she wanted was a little kindness, a little respect. Was that too much to ask? And from across the room, Daniel knew. This was not a night he could simply stay quiet. Anna's heart beat faster with every passing second. She had dreamed of this evening for weeks. It was supposed to be special. a chance to meet someone new, maybe even someone who could look past her struggles. But the man sitting across from her had already made his opinion clear. His sharp words cut through the soft music of the restaurant like a knife. "You really thought you could come here and impress me?" he asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms as though Anna was an inconvenience. "This isn't a cafe on the corner. This is the kind of place where real women dress like queens, not like maids." Anna's chest tightened. She wanted to answer, to defend herself, but her lips refused to move. Her throat was dry and the lump of shame sat heavy in it. She had worked all week just to save for this one dinner. She had polished her shoes until they shone. She had practiced her smile in the mirror. Yet here she was, mocked for daring to hope she belonged. A couple at the next table chuckled. Another whispered something behind a hand. The humiliation spread like fire, and Anna felt it burning her from inside. She looked down, clutching her borrowed purse tighter. "I came because I thought maybe you would want to know me," she whispered. The man scoffed. "Know you? What's there to know? You clean floors for a living. You probably smell like bleach every day. Honestly, I'm embarrassed even to sit here with you." The words hit her like stones, each one heavy, each one cruel. She lowered her gaze further, wishing she could vanish into thin air. Across the room, Daniel, the millionaire, observed in silence. His fork lay untouched on his plate. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing as the scene unfolded. To him, this was not just a date gone wrong. It was a performance of cruelty. He could see how Anna's shoulders curved inward, how her fingers trembled against the edge of the table. He knew that feeling. He had lived it before. Years ago, when Daniel had been nothing but a poor worker scrubbing plates in a noisy kitchen, he too had been looked down upon. People laughed at his old shoes, mocked his torn jacket, told him he was chasing impossible dreams. That memory was carved deep into him, and it rose now like a storm. Anna's date leaned closer, his voice growing louder, almost as if he wanted everyone to hear. "I can't believe I wasted my time. My friend said she was setting me up with someone elegant. Instead, I get this." He waved a hand toward Anna, as if she was nothing more than an object. A ripple of laughter floated across the restaurant. Not everyone joined in, but no one stood up for her either. For them, it was just entertainment. For Anna, it was a wound she couldn't hide. She bit her lip hard, fighting back tears. Crying in front of him would give him more power, and she refused to give him that. She sat frozen, silent, her pride the only fragile shield she had left. Daniel's chest tightened. He could see she wasn't weak. She was strong for even staying in her seat. But strength should never be punished like this. The waiter approached their table with 2 glasses of wine. The date smirked, pointed at Anna, and said loudly, "She won't need one. Do you know how much this glass costs? Probably more than her whole salary for a week." The waiter hesitated, uncomfortable. Anna felt her face flush redder. She wished she could disappear into the shadows of the restaurant. At that moment, Daniel's decision was made. He could no longer sit back. He placed his napkin on the table, stood up slowly, and began walking toward them. His steps were calm, measured, but inside he was burning with anger. Anna didn't notice him at first. Her eyes were fixed on her lap, her mind repeating the same painful thought. Why did I come here? Why did I think I deserved this? Her date leaned in one final time, sneering. You should stick to places that match your kind. Cheap diners, small cafes, not here. You'll never fit in with people like me. Suddenly, a deep voice interrupted. People like you? Anna's head jerked up in surprise. Her date froze, his arrogant smile faltering. Standing right beside their table was Daniel, his tall figure casting a shadow across them. His eyes were calm, but his tone carried weight. The restaurant fell silent. All eyes turned to watch. Daniel looked at Anna first, his gaze soft, almost protective. Then he shifted to the man across from her, his expression hardening. Do you even hear yourself? He asked coldly. You sit here belittling someone honest and hardworking. Do you think that makes you strong? It only makes you small. Gasps spread across the room. Anna blinked rapidly, not sure what was happening. Why would a stranger defend her? Her date tried to recover his pride, laughing nervously. And who exactly are you? Daniel straightened, his voice low but firm. Someone who knows respect when he sees it. And right now I see none in you. Anna's breath caught. For the first time that evening, she didn't feel alone. The restaurant was silent. Every fork paused in midair. Every whisper died in the air. All eyes were now on the three people at the center of the storm. Anna, her arrogant date, and the tall, confident man who had just spoken against him. Anna's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She could not understand why this stranger had stood up for her. No one ever had. Usually people turned away when she was insulted. But this man's voice had cut through the humiliation like a shield. Her date shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Look, sir, this is none of your business. I was having a private conversation. Maybe you should go back to your own table." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice was calm, but it carried power. It became everyone's business when you decided to humiliate her out loud. You didn't whisper. You made sure everyone could hear you. That's not private. That's cruelty. A low murmur spread through the restaurant. Some nodded in agreement. A few diners who had laughed earlier now lowered their eyes, ashamed. Anna's face was hot, but not from embarrassment this time. Something strange washed over her, a mixture of shock, relief, and a little hope. She lifted her eyes to Daniel, her lips trembling. She wanted to thank him, but the words stayed stuck in her throat. Her date laughed nervously, pretending not to be shaken. "Cruelty? I'm just being honest. Look at her. She doesn't belong here. This place is for people of class, people who earn respect. She's just a cleaner, a nobody." Daniel's eyes darkened. He leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. "You think money buys respect? You think your suit makes you bigger than her? Let me tell you something. I once scrubbed plates in kitchens smaller than this room. I know what it feels like to be treated like nothing. And I also know that those who look down on honest work are the real nobodies." A gasp echoed. The arrogance on Anna's date's face faltered. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, he was not in control. Anna blinked, stunned. She could hardly believe this stranger was admitting something so personal in front of everyone. Millionaires didn't usually speak about being poor. But this man did it proudly, without shame. Her chest ached as if his words had lifted a weight she had carried for years. The date slammed his hand on the table, desperate to save face. "Do you even know who I am?" Daniel's lips curved into a cold smile. "It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is how you treat people. And right now you're showing everyone here exactly who you are. A man with no respect, no kindness, and no dignity." Silence fell again. The date's face turned red. He looked around the restaurant, hoping for support, but no one met his eyes. The very people who had smirked with him earlier were now staring at him with disgust. Anna's throat loosened slightly. She felt air rush back into her lungs. For the first time that night, she didn't feel completely invisible. Someone was standing for her. Someone powerful. Someone unafraid. Her date stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. His pride was wounded beyond repair. "I don't have to sit here and take this," he muttered angrily. Without looking at Anna, without an apology, he stormed out of the restaurant. The sound of the door closing echoed loudly. Then came a quiet applause. It started with one diner, then another, until several people clapped softly. They weren't clapping for the man who left. They were clapping for the courage of the stranger who had silenced arrogance. Anna sat frozen, her cheeks damp with tears she hadn't even noticed falling. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. Her humiliation had turned into a moment of honor, but she didn't know what to do with it. Daniel bent down slightly, his voice gentle now, softer than before. "Are you all right?" She nodded quickly, though her voice betrayed her. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Daniel said simply. "Let me sit with you if you don't mind." Anna's eyes widened. This man, this stranger who had just silenced her worst humiliation, wanted to sit with her. She swallowed hard and nodded. Daniel pulled out the chair across from her, sitting down with calm confidence. The waiter, still holding the untouched glasses of wine, returned nervously. Daniel gestured toward Anna. "Bring her the best this place has to offer. And please, no more interruptions." The waiter nodded quickly and rushed away. Anna lowered her eyes again, but this time it wasn't from shame. It was from disbelief. The weight on her chest felt lighter, yet her hands still shook. No man had ever stood for her, not even her family. And here was a stranger, powerful, elegant, and commanding respect from everyone in the room, choosing to sit at her table. She whispered almost to herself, Why would you do that for me?" Daniel looked at her kindly. Because no one deserves to be treated the way he treated you. And because I know what it feels like. Her breath caught again. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not as a cleaner, not as someone lesser, but as a human being worthy of respect. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted completely. What had started as a cruel spectacle of humiliation was now turning into something no one expected. The arrogant man was gone, and in his place sat Daniel, calm and composed across from Anna. The room still buzzed quietly, with diners stealing glances, curious about this strange twist. But Anna's world felt narrowed down to just the table, the stranger, and the sound of her own pounding heart. Her fingers still trembled slightly as she tried to hold the edge of her purse. Daniel noticed it, and his voice softened even more. "You don't need to be nervous," he said gently. "You've done nothing wrong." Anna finally raised her eyes. There was kindness in his face, something she was not used to seeing in strangers. "I don't understand. You didn't even know me. Why would you defend me like that?" she asked in a shaky tone. Daniel leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. His gaze was steady, but his words carried weight. "Because I know how it feels to sit where you are. To be looked down on, to be treated like you're less than everyone else." Anna blinked. She tilted her head, her brows furrowing in confusion. But you don't look like someone who's ever been treated that way." Daniel gave a faint smile. "That's because you're only seeing me now. You didn't see me 10 years ago, when I was washing dishes in a dirty kitchen, when people laughed at my clothes, when I was told I'd never amount to anything. I started at the bottom just like you." Anna stared at him, almost forgetting to breathe. Millionaires were supposed to be born into wealth, at least in her mind. But this man was telling her a different story, one that sounded closer to her own life than she imagined possible. She lowered her eyes again, her voice barely a whisper. I clean rooms. Every day. People throw things on the floor like I don't exist. Sometimes they yell at me for things I didn't even do. And tonight, I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would look at me differently." Her words cracked. "But I was wrong." Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, you weren't wrong. You just chose the wrong man. The problem isn't you, it's people like him, who think respect is something only money can buy." Anna felt something stir in her chest. She had spent so long accepting humiliation in silence that she almost believed she deserved it. But here was someone saying the opposite. It felt strange but comforting. The waiter returned with 2 plates of food, nervous but eager to please. Daniel thanked him politely and gestured for Anna to start. She hesitated, embarrassed. "I don't know if I can—" "This is so expensive," Daniel smiled kindly. "Tonight, don't think about the price. Think about yourself. You deserve to sit here as much as anyone else." For the first time that night, Anna let out a small laugh, soft, nervous, but real. She picked up her fork, though her hand still shook. "I never thought I'd be sitting across from someone like you," she admitted. Daniel tilted his head. "Someone like me?" She blushed. "A man who doesn't just see the uniform I wear, who doesn't laugh at me." Daniel looked at her thoughtfully, his voice low. "Do you know why I stood up for you? Because when I saw you, I saw dignity. You sat there, holding yourself together even when he tried to break you. That takes strength more than most people have." Her eyes widened. No one had ever called her strong before. People only saw her as weak, invisible, or pitiful. The word strength felt foreign yet warm, as if it was something she had been waiting to hear all her life. She put down her fork slowly. "I'm not strong," she said softly. "I'm just surviving." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his gaze locking with hers. "Surviving every day despite everything against you, that is strength." Anna felt her chest tighten, but this time not from shame. It was a different kind of feeling, one that made her throat ache with emotion. Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't look away. Silence fell between them for a moment, but it was not heavy. It was gentle, filled with unspoken understanding. Around them, the restaurant returned to normal, the music playing, the clink of glasses echoing. But at their table, something rare was happening. 2 very different lives meeting at the same place, finding a strange connection. Anna finally spoke again, her voice fragile but steady. "You don't even know my name," Daniel smiled. "Then tell me." "Anna," she whispered. "Anna," he repeated as if testing the sound. "It suits you." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. It had been so long since anyone had said her name like it mattered. For the first time that evening, Anna felt the humiliation fade from her skin, replaced by something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Anna sat quietly across the table, still trying to process what had happened. Only an hour ago she had been a target of laughter, treated like she didn't belong. Now she was sitting with a man who had not only defended her, but also looked at her as if she mattered. It felt like the whole world had turned upside down in just a few moments. Daniel, calm and collected, continued eating his meal, as though nothing unusual had happened. But he noticed the way people's eyes still followed them. Diners whispered, some with curiosity, others with guilt. They had all witnessed her humiliation, but now they were witnessing something else, her dignity being restored. Anna kept her head low, but she could feel it too. The atmosphere had changed. People weren't laughing anymore. They were watching her differently, and it was all because of this stranger who had chosen to stand up for her. Daniel spoke softly, breaking the silence at their table. "Do you feel them looking at you?" Anna nodded hesitantly. "Yeah, I don't like it. They're probably judging me again." Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, they're not judging you. They're judging themselves. They laughed when they should have stayed quiet. They turned away when you needed kindness. Now they see someone who had the courage to sit through humiliation with her head still high. That's what they're looking at." Anna's eyes widened slightly. His words were so different from the thoughts in her own head. She had always believed people saw her as weak, as less. But Daniel was telling her they saw something else, strength. The waiter returned again, this time more confident than before. He set down another dish, glancing at Anna with a small, almost apologetic smile. It was as though he too had been moved by what he had witnessed. Anna murmured a soft, "Thank you," her voice barely audible, but Daniel caught it. "See?" he said gently. "Even small acts of respect can change the way someone feels. Tonight they're learning from you." Anna looked at him in disbelief. "Learning from me? I didn't do anything. I just sat here." "You endured," Daniel replied firmly. "And endurance is often louder than any words." His tone made her chest tighten. She looked down at her plate, blinking back tears. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever made her feel like her existence itself had value. Across the room, a couple raised their glasses in a quiet gesture toward Daniel. They mouthed the word cheers, admiring his courage. But Daniel did not acknowledge them. His attention remained on Anna. "Do you know what makes a person truly respected?" Daniel asked. Anna shook her head slowly. "It's not wealth. It's not the clothes they wear or the car they drive. It's the way they treat people when no one is watching. Tonight you've shown more grace than most people ever will." Anna let out a shaky laugh, though her eyes glistened. "Grace? I almost cried in front of everyone." Daniel smiled faintly. "And yet you didn't. You held yourself together even when you wanted to run. That takes courage." Anna pressed her lips together, feeling her chest swell with emotions she couldn't explain. Her humiliation was still fresh, but it was slowly being washed away by something stronger. Respect, not just from Daniel, but from the very people who had laughed at her earlier. For a moment, silence settled between them again. Anna stared at her hands, the roughness from years of cleaning showing on her skin. She wanted to hide them, but Daniel's eyes caught the movement. "Don't hide them," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. "What?" "Your hands," Daniel explained. "They tell a story. They show hard work, sacrifice, responsibility. You should never be ashamed of them." Anna blinked rapidly, her throat tightening. All her life, people had told her those same hands were proof of her low place in society. But Daniel saw something else. She felt a tear slip down her cheek before she could stop it. Quickly, she wiped it away, embarrassed. Daniel's voice softened further. "Don't hide your tears either. They're honest." And honesty is rare. Anna's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded slowly as though trying to accept everything he was telling her. Around them, the restaurant was no longer hostile. The mocking eyes had softened. The whispers had shifted into admiration. Even those who had laughed earlier seemed ashamed, unable to look directly at her now. For the first time that evening, Anna sat a little straighter in her chair. The humiliation had not vanished, but it no longer defined her. She realized something powerful. Respect was not something others gave, it was something she could hold within herself, no matter how others treated her. And sitting across from her was a man who had reminded her of that truth. Daniel picked up his glass and raised it slightly toward her. "To Anna," he said simply. Her eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. "Well, why?" "Because you showed strength tonight," Daniel replied, his gaze steady. "And that deserves to be honored." Anna hesitated, then slowly lifted her own glass. For the first time all night, she smiled, not out of politeness, not out of nervousness, but from a place deep inside her heart. At that moment, Anna realized she was no longer just the cleaner who had been humiliated on a blind date. She was the woman who had earned the respect of a millionaire and the quiet admiration of an entire room. Dinner ended quietly. The laughter and whispers from earlier had faded into silence. The restaurant returned to its usual rhythm, but the air around Anna and Daniel still carried a sense of something unspoken. Anna sat nervously, staring at her half-finished plate. She couldn't bring herself to eat more, though Daniel had encouraged her gently. Her heart was too full, her mind too restless. Never before had she been the center of so much attention, mocked, then defended, then admired. The storm of emotions left her exhausted, Daniel noticed. He placed his napkin neatly on the table and leaned forward. "Anna," he said softly, "would you like me to walk you home?" Anna blinked, surprised. You don't have to. I'll be fine." Daniel shook his head. "I insist. Tonight has been heavy enough for you. You shouldn't walk alone with such weight on your shoulders." For a moment she hesitated. A stranger offering to walk her home should have made her cautious, but something about Daniel's presence calmed her fears. There was no judgment in his eyes, only genuine concern. Slowly she nodded. Daniel stood and helped her with her coat, his movements gentle yet respectful. As they left the restaurant, Anna noticed something she hadn't expected. A few diners gave her small nods, even smiles. People who earlier had watched her humiliation now looked at her with something close to admiration. She walked out of the restaurant with her head slightly higher, though her cheeks still burned. Outside, the night air was crisp and cool. Streetlights glowed softly, and the distant sound of traffic hummed through the city. Anna walked beside Daniel, her steps quiet, her mind racing. She wanted to thank him properly, but the words tangled inside her. Daniel broke the silence first. "I hope you don't think I interfered too much back there." Anna glanced at him quickly. "No, not at all. If you hadn't, I don't know what I would have done." "You would have endured," Daniel said firmly, "because that's what you do. But no one should have to endure cruelty alone." His words struck her again, pulling at something deep in her chest. She bit her lip, trying to hide the tears forming once more. "I don't understand why you cared," she whispered. "People usually look away. Even when they see, they pretend they don't." Daniel's step slowed slightly. "Because I was once in your place. I know the sting of being ignored, of being humiliated. I made a promise to myself years ago that if I ever had the chance, I wouldn't stay silent while someone else suffered it." Anna turned her head, studying him carefully. He spoke with such certainty as though his words were carved in stone. She wondered what kind of pain had shaped him, what kind of life had made him understand hers so easily. They walked a few more steps in silence. Then Anna asked quietly, "Why didn't you just leave? Most people would have thought, 'This isn't my problem.'" Daniel gave a small smile. "Because when we start believing someone else's dignity isn't our problem, we lose our own." Anna stopped for a moment, stunned. His words were simple, but they felt like a truth she had never heard before. She realized that in one evening, this stranger had given her more respect than most people had in her entire life. They reached a quiet street where the noise of the city softened. Anna finally gathered the courage to speak from her heart. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Not just for tonight, but for reminding me that I'm not worthless." I almost believed him. Daniel turned to face her fully. "Never believe someone who tries to define your worth. They don't know your battles, your sacrifices, or your strength. Only you know that. And from what I've seen, you're stronger than you realize." Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. She wanted to believe him. Yet the scars of years of humiliation weighed heavy inside her. Still, something in his words planted a seed, a small flicker of hope she thought had died long ago. They continued walking until they reached a small, worn building where Anna lived. The walls were cracked, the paint faded, and the stairwell light flickered dimly. Anna felt a wave of embarrassment as she stopped at the entrance. "This is where I live," she said softly, almost apologetically. Daniel studied the building without judgment. Instead, he nodded slowly. It's a roof over your head, and it's yours. That already makes it valuable. Anna's throat tightened again. No one had ever spoken about her life with such respect before. Most people only saw what was missing. He saw what was there. She turned toward him, unsure what to say. But Daniel gave her a reassuring smile. Get some rest, Anna. You've carried enough for one night. Anna swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't even know what this means to me. Daniel's eyes softened. I don't need to. I only need to know you deserved it. For a moment, they stood there in silence. Anna wanted to say more, but her words failed. She finally managed a small smile, one that carried both gratitude and disbelief. As Daniel turned to leave, Anna whispered under her breath, almost too softly for him to hear, You saved me tonight. He paused, glanced back, and gave her a gentle nod. No, Anna, you saved yourself. I just reminded you. And with that, he walked into the night, leaving her standing in the doorway, her heart heavier and lighter at the same time. Morning sunlight crept through the thin curtains of Anna's small room. She woke up slowly, her eyes heavy from a restless night. Sleep had come in short bursts, interrupted by the replay of everything that had happened at the restaurant. The cruel laughter, the humiliation, and then Daniel. His voice, his words, his kindness kept echoing in her mind like a song she couldn't turn off. For a long moment, she just lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if it had all been a dream. Had a millionaire really defended her? Had he really walked her home and told her she was strong? Or had her imagination made it up to protect her from the pain? But as she sat up, her phone buzzed. She picked it up, confused. Messages from coworkers filled the screen. Anna, was that you in the video? Girl, you're all over social media. You won't believe it, you're trending. Anna's eyes widened. Video? What video? She whispered to herself. She quickly tapped one of the links her friend had sent. Her heart stopped. There she was on the screen, sitting at the restaurant, being mocked by her date. The video had been taken by a diner on their phone. It showed the cruel words, her silence, and then Daniel. It captured the exact moment he had stepped in, defending her with calm strength. The clip ended with her arrogant date storming out and people clapping. Anna's hand covered her mouth. She could hardly breathe. Millions of people had already watched it. The comments flooded the video. Respect to the man who stood up for her. She held herself with so much grace. That so-called date should be ashamed. She's stronger than she thinks, Anna's heart pounded as she scrolled. People weren't laughing at her. They weren't mocking her job. They were praising her, calling her brave, calling her graceful. For once, the world wasn't against her. At work that morning, things felt different. Normally, Anna walked into the hotel with her head low, avoiding the stares of coworkers and guests. But today, whispers followed her in a new way. The receptionist gave her a small smile. The bellboy nodded at her with respect. Even her supervisor, who often barked orders without kindness, paused for a second when he saw her. Anna, he said gruffly, I saw the video. You did well to stay calm. Not everyone could do that. It wasn't much, but coming from him, it felt like gold. As Anna picked up her cleaning supplies, her friend Clara rushed over. Anna, I can't believe you didn't tell me. You're famous now. Anna shook her head quickly, blushing. No, I don't want to be famous. But people love you, Clara insisted. They're calling you the woman with quiet strength. Even the millionaire Daniel, he's in the news too. Reporters are trying to find out more about him. Anna froze. Hearing his name out loud sent a strange shiver down her spine. He must hate it, she said softly. But Clara shook her head. No, from what I read, he doesn't care about attention. He just wanted to help you. That's why people respect him even more. Anna sighed, her heart twisting. She didn't know if she'd ever see him again. But knowing that people now looked at her differently felt strange. For so long she had been invisible. Now suddenly she was seen. Later that day, while she was cleaning one of the guest rooms, the television played in the background. A news reporter spoke. A video of a millionaire businessman defending a young woman on a blind date has gone viral. The woman, identified only as Anna, works as a hotel cleaner. Viewers around the world are praising her grace and the man's courage. The arrogant date, on the other hand, has deleted his social media accounts after facing public outrage. Anna dropped the cloth she was holding, her heart racing. The world knew her name now. But more than that, the world knew her story. Not the story of a poor cleaner, but the story of a woman who had endured cruelty with dignity. As the day went on, Anna received more messages. Strangers sent words of encouragement. Some shared their own stories of being humiliated because of their jobs, telling her she had inspired them. That night, back in her small room, Anna sat by the window, staring at the city lights. Everything felt surreal. She whispered to herself, "Why me? Why now?" Her phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. Her breath caught when she saw the sender. It was Daniel. "Anna, I hope today wasn't too overwhelming. I just wanted to remind you, don't let the world define you by one night. You were strong before the video and you're strong after it. I believe in you," her eyes filled with tears. She clutched the phone to her chest, unable to stop the smile spreading across her face. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt alive. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Anna sat by the window, her phone still clutched tightly in her hand. Daniel's message glowed on the screen, simple yet powerful. "You were strong before the video and you're strong after it. I believe in you." She read it again and again, her heart racing. No one had ever said they believed in her. People usually looked at her as though she was invisible, or worse, as though she was a burden. But Daniel's words carried weight, and each syllable sank into her like sunlight breaking through a long winter. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to reply, but fear held her back. What could she possibly say to a millionaire? What could a hotel cleaner and a man of his stature have in common, beyond one strange, unforgettable evening? Finally, with trembling hands, she typed, "Thank you. I don't know why you stood up for me, but you made me feel human again. I will never forget it." She hesitated, staring at the words, then hit send before she could lose her courage. A few minutes passed. Her heart pounded louder with each second. Then her phone buzzed. Daniel had replied, "I didn't make you feel human, Anna. You always were. You just needed someone to remind you." Her breath caught. She pressed the phone to her chest, her eyes stinging with tears. She whispered softly into the quiet room, "Why does he care so much?" The next day, Anna went about her work at the hotel, but something was different. Guests smiled at her. Co-workers treated her with more respect. Even her supervisor spoke in a gentler tone. The viral video had changed how people saw her. But deep inside, Anna knew it wasn't the video that had given her strength. It was Daniel's words. During her lunch break, her phone buzzed again. Another message from him. "Would you like to meet for coffee? No cameras, no crowd, just two people talking." Anna froze, staring at the screen. Her heart leapt with excitement, but fear crept in just as quickly. What if she said the wrong thing? What if he realized she wasn't interesting? What if this was pity, not friendship? She typed slowly, carefully. "If you're sure." Yes, Daniel's reply came almost instantly. "Tomorrow at 5 near the Park Cafe on Rosewood Street. I'll be there." That evening, Anna couldn't stop pacing in her small room. She stood in front of the mirror, holding up her plain clothes, wishing she had something finer to wear. But then she remembered Daniel's words. Don't hide your hands. Don't hide your tears. He hadn't cared about her dress at the restaurant. He had cared about her dignity. That thought gave her courage. The next day, as the clock ticked closer to 5, Anna made her way to the Park Cafe. Her palms were sweaty, her steps shaky, but she walked forward anyway. The cafe was simple, not like the grand restaurant from before. Families laughed over pastries, students sipped coffee while reading, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. And there he was. Daniel sat by the window, dressed in a casual shirt and jacket, a warm smile on his face. He didn't look like a man trying to impress anyone. He looked like someone at peace. When he saw Anna, his eyes lit up. He stood and pulled out a chair for her. "You came," he said softly. Anna nodded, her voice shy. "I almost didn't. I was scared." "Of me?" he asked, surprised. "Not you," she admitted. "Of myself. I didn't know if I was good enough to sit here." Daniel leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Anna, listen to me. You don't have to be anyone else to sit with me. You are enough exactly as you are." Her throat tightened and her eyes welled up. She nodded, blinking quickly to hide her tears. "You say that so easily," she whispered. "I say it because it's true," he replied. They ordered coffee, and the conversation flowed slowly at first, like water trickling from a hesitant stream. Daniel asked about her life, not just her job, but her dreams, her childhood, her family. Anna told him about her younger siblings, about how she had taken care of them after their parents passed, about the sacrifices she had made. She expected him to look bored, but he listened with genuine interest, nodding, asking questions, and smiling at the small joys hidden in her story. Then Daniel shared pieces of his past. How he had worked long hours in kitchens and construction sites, how people had dismissed him as just another poor boy, how he had promised himself he would rise above it. He told her about the nights he had slept hungry, the days he had felt invisible. Anna listened, her eyes wide. She saw not a millionaire, but a man who had known struggle just like her. By the time the sun dipped lower in the sky, the two of them sat in easy silence, sipping the last of their coffee. It wasn't the silence of strangers. It was the silence of two souls who had found a connection they never expected. Anna finally spoke, her voice soft. "Why do you keep reminding me that I'm strong?" Daniel looked at her, his expression gentle but firm. "Because you are. And one day I hope you'll believe it without needing me to say it." Anna's lips trembled into a smile. For the first time in a long time she felt seen, not as a cleaner, not as a poor woman, but as Anna. Just Anna. The days that followed were unlike anything Anna had ever experienced. For years her life had been a quiet routine. Wake up early, go to the hotel, clean rooms until her back ached, return home to her small apartment, and collapse in silence. But now everything seemed different. It wasn't her surroundings that had changed. The cracked walls of her building were still the same. The long hours at the hotel still stretched before her. But inside something was shifting. For the first time in years she felt a sense of light, as if her heart was learning how to breathe again. At the hotel, co-workers who had once overlooked her now greeted her with smiles. The receptionist, who used to speak to her without eye contact, now stopped to ask how her morning was. Guests treated her more kindly, offering polite thank yous for small tasks. It wasn't just the viral video, it was the way Anna carried herself. She walked straighter, her eyes lifted higher. The humiliation that had once bent her shoulders no longer defined her. But Anna knew the change wasn't simply because of the world around her. It was because of Daniel. His words echoed in her mind daily. Surviving every day despite everything against you, that is strength. That truth followed her like a quiet companion. When she scrubbed the floor, she no longer felt invisible. When she folded sheets, she no longer felt worthless. Each small act became proof of her endurance, not her weakness. One afternoon, while cleaning a guest suite, Anna overheard two guests talking in the hallway. "Isn't she the one from the video?" one whispered. "Yes, that's her." The cleaner who stayed calm while her date insulted her. "Brave woman." Anna froze, her heart pounding. They weren't mocking her, they were admiring her. Slowly, a small smile crept onto her face. She finished her work with a quiet pride she had never felt before. That evening, as she walked home, she noticed the city differently. The same streets she had walked countless times felt alive. Shopkeepers nodded at her. A stranger held the door open for her. It was as though the world had finally remembered she existed. When she reached her building, she found a surprise waiting. A small envelope lay on her doorstep. Inside was a simple card. To Anna, strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unseen. But it changes lives. Yours has already changed mine. Daniel. Anna pressed the card to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. She had never received words like these before. She whispered softly, "Why does he see so much in me that I can't?" The next day, Daniel invited her to join him for a walk through the park. It wasn't a date, not in the usual sense. It was just two people walking side by side, talking about life. Anna told him about her siblings, how she had taken responsibility for them after their parents' death. She confessed the struggles she faced, nights when she had skipped meals so her younger brother could eat, mornings when she had worked extra shifts just to pay the rent. Daniel listened with quiet respect, never interrupting, never looking down on her. Instead, he said, "You've carried more weight than most people ever could. That's why I call you strong, because you've lived through storms others wouldn't survive." His words settled deep into her like roots finding soil. For the first time, Anna didn't feel ashamed of her past. She felt proud. As they sat on a park bench, Anna noticed how people looked at Daniel. They recognized him as a man of wealth, But what struck her was how little he seemed to care about the attention. He laughed easily, spoke gently, and treated her as though she was his equal. She turned to him and asked quietly, "Don't you ever feel like people only see your money?" Daniel smiled faintly.
All the time.
That's why I value honesty more than anything. And you, Anna. You've been nothing but honest from the start. That's rare, her chest tightened. She didn't know how to reply. Instead, she looked at the sky, painted with the warm colors of sunset. For the first time, she felt safe sitting beside someone who didn't demand her to be anyone but herself. Later that evening, when Anna returned home, Clara was waiting outside her door with a wide grin. "Anna, do you realize what's happening? People at the hotel are calling you an inspiration. They said you make them proud to work there. Even some guests left compliments about you at the desk." Anna's eyes widened in shock. "Compliments? About me? Yes," Clara laughed. "They said you remind them that dignity can't be bought. And you know what? They're right." Anna leaned against the door, her mind spinning. Only a week ago she had been humiliated, her dignity crushed. But now she was being called an inspiration. And it was all because one man had stepped forward when no one else did. That night, Anna sat on her bed, staring at Daniel's cardigan. She whispered to herself, "Maybe he's right. Maybe I am stronger than I thought." For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe it. Anna's life was moving in directions she had never imagined. Each day felt lighter than the last, though the work was still the same. She still scrubbed floors, made beds, and polished glass until her arms ached. But something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt invisible. She no longer walked with her head bowed low. At the hotel, guests greeted her kindly. Some even asked, "Are you the woman from the video?" She would blush and nod shyly. A few offered words of encouragement. "You're stronger than you know." Each phrase left her stunned, almost speechless. But the greatest change came when Daniel called her one evening. His voice, calm and warm, carried through the phone. "Anna," he said, "are you free tomorrow?" Her heart jumped. "Yes, why?" "I want to show you something." "Don't worry, it's not a restaurant or anything fancy. Just trust me." The next afternoon, Anna found herself standing outside a community center Daniel had asked her to meet him at. It was a modest building, painted in bright colors but slightly worn from years of use. Children's laughter echoed from the playground nearby, and women chatted near the entrance. Daniel greeted her with his usual gentle smile. "Thank you for coming," he said, holding the door open for her. Inside, the center buzzed with life. There were classrooms where children studied, a small library with donated books, and a hall where women were learning new skills, sewing, baking, even basic computer lessons. Anna's eyes widened as she took it all in. "What is this place?" she asked softly. Daniel's eyes lit up. "This is one of the centers my foundation supports. It's for people who want to grow, learn, and build better lives. Some of these women started exactly where you are, working long hours, barely making ends meet. Now, they're running small businesses and teaching others." Anna turned to him, stunned. You did this?" Daniel shook his head. "No, Anna, they did this. I just gave them the tools." She walked slowly through the hall, watching as a group of women carefully decorated cakes while another group worked on sewing machines. Their faces were filled with focus and quiet pride. Anna felt something stir in her chest, a strange mixture of awe and longing. Daniel studied her carefully. "I wanted to bring you here because I see the same strength in you. You've survived, Anna. But survival doesn't have to be the end of your story. You can build something more." Anna froze, her breath catching. "Me, but I don't know how to do anything else. All I've ever done is clean." Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm but kind. "Cleaning is work. Honest work. But you are more than your job. You have resilience, patience, and responsibility. Those qualities can build anything. You just have to believe in yourself." Anna's throat tightened. She looked around at the women smiling, learning, teaching, and something inside her cracked open. She had always thought her life would remain the same forever, scrubbing floors until her body broke. But here, in this bright, bustling place, she saw possibilities. Still, doubt clung to her. "What if I fail?" she whispered. Daniel's answer was immediate. "Then you try again. Failure isn't the end, it's part of the path." Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but the fear of disappointment still held her back. "Why me?" she asked suddenly, her voice trembling. "Why do you keep helping me when there are so many others?" Daniel's gaze softened. Because when I saw you that night, I saw myself. I saw someone with fire inside. Someone who refuses to break even when the world tries to crush them. And I knew. You deserve a chance to see who you really are. Anna's lips trembled, and for a moment she couldn't speak. She turned away, wiping her tears quickly, embarrassed. But Daniel didn't move closer or pressure her. The days after Anna's visit to the community center passed like a blur. Her mind could not let go of what she had seen. The women laughing over sewing machines, the children learning in small classrooms, the sense of pride that filled the air. It had awakened something inside her, something she didn't even know was there, the possibility of change. At work in the hotel, Anna began to notice how her attitude was shifting. Where once she moved silently, trying to stay invisible, she now carried herself differently. She smiled more. She looked people in the eye. She greeted guests with warmth that came not from duty but from confidence. And people noticed. One morning, a guest at the hotel stopped her in the hallway. "You're the woman from the video, aren't you?" the lady asked kindly. Anna nodded shyly, her cheeks flushing. The woman smiled. "I just want you to know, you inspired me. I used to feel ashamed of my job too. But after seeing you hold yourself with dignity, I realized there's nothing shameful in honest work. Thank you." Anna's chest tightened as tears pricked her eyes. She murmured a soft thank you in return, her voice trembling. For so long, she had been the one feeling invisible. Now her story was helping others feel seen. At the staff canteen later that day, Clara nudged her with a grin. "Do you realize what's happening? People aren't just talking about Daniel anymore, they're talking about you. They're calling you an example of dignity and courage. Even the hotel manager mentioned your name in the morning meeting. He said your attitude brings honor to the place." Anna blinked, stunned. The same manager who once barely noticed her was now speaking her name with pride. It felt unreal. That evening, her phone buzzed with another message from Daniel. "How was your day?" She smiled as she typed back. "Strange. People keep telling me I inspire them. I don't feel like an inspiration." His reply came quickly. "That's what makes you one, Anna. True strength doesn't boast, it simply shines and people see it." Her eyes filled again. How did he always know exactly what to say? The ripple of her story spread further. A local newspaper ran an article titled, "The Cleaner Who Carried Herself with Grace." The article praised her composure in the face of humiliation and highlighted Daniel's defense of her. But what caught Anna's attention most was a single line. "Anna's quiet strength reminds us all that dignity does not come from wealth, but from character." She read it again and again, hardly believing they were writing about her. At the hotel, other cleaners began to look at her differently too. Some approached her shyly. "Anna, we saw the article. You give us hope," one of them whispered. Another added, "Maybe people will finally respect us more because of you." Anna's heart swelled. She had never thought her pain could help anyone else. But now her humiliation had turned into something powerful, something bigger than herself. One evening, Daniel invited her again to the cafe. They sat by the window sipping warm coffee as the city lights glowed outside. Anna looked at him thoughtfully and said, "Do you realize what you've done?" He tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "You turned my worst night into the start of something I never imagined. People look at me differently now. They treat me differently. I feel different. And it all started because you stood up for me." Daniel shook his head gently. "No, Anna, it started because you didn't break. If you had shouted back or walked out, maybe people would have ignored it. But you stayed. You endured with quiet strength. That's what moved them. I only gave my voice when you needed it." Her eyes glistened. She wanted to argue, but deep down she knew he was right. She had stayed. She had faced humiliation and still held her ground. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe she was more than she thought she was. That night, after their coffee, Daniel walked her back to her building again. As they stood by the entrance, Anna whispered, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but for the first time I'm not afraid of it." Daniel smiled. "That's because tomorrow is no longer something that happens to you, it's something you can shape." Anna looked at him, her chest tight with gratitude. "You've given me more than respect, Daniel. You've given me a new way to see myself." He nodded softly. "And once you see yourself clearly, no one can take that away." When she went inside, Anna leaned against her door, her heart racing. She realized she was no longer the same woman who had walked nervously into a restaurant, only to be mocked. She was no longer just the cleaner who kept her head down. She was Anna, the woman who had endured, who had inspired, and who now stood on the edge of a new life she never thought possible. The night air was cool, and the city hummed softly in the distance. Anna sat by her small window staring at the glowing lights. She thought of everything that had happened, the humiliation, the video, the whispers, the respect, and above all, Daniel. Each moment felt like a piece of a puzzle that had changed her life. She whispered to herself, "Why me? Why did he choose to help me?" The question haunted her, but so did the answer she felt deep inside. Daniel hadn't chosen her because of pity. He had chosen her because he saw something in her that even she had failed to see: dignity, strength, and worth. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. "Are you free tomorrow evening? I'd like to see you." Anna's heart raced. She typed back quickly, "Yes." The next evening, Daniel picked her up near her building. He wasn't driving a flashy car as she might have expected from a millionaire. Instead, it was a simple black sedan, comfortable but not extravagant. That small detail touched her more than she admitted. "Where are we going?" she asked nervously as she got inside. "You'll see," Daniel replied with a faint smile. They drove in comfortable silence until they reached a quiet hill just outside the city. The view stretched wide, the skyline glowing like scattered jewels against the dark sky. Daniel parked the car and gestured for her to step out. Anna gasped softly. "It's beautiful," Daniel nodded. "I used to come here when I was younger. Back then I had nothing. I would stand here, look at the city lights, and promise myself that one day I wouldn't just survive. I would live. This place reminds me of that promise." Anna looked at him, her heart swelling. She realized that the man standing beside her wasn't just a millionaire. He was someone who had walked through darkness just as she had, and chosen to rise. They stood quietly for a while, watching the city below. Then Daniel turned to her. His voice was steady but gentle. "Anna, do you know why I keep telling you you're strong?" She shook her head. "I still don't understand why you care so much." "Because," he said firmly, "the world is too quick to forget people like you. People who work quietly, sacrifice daily, and endure without recognition. The world needs to see your strength, Anna. But more importantly, you need to see it yourself." Tears filled her eyes again, spilling onto her cheeks. "You make it sound like I'm someone important, but I'm just a cleaner." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, Anna, you're not just anything. You are a woman who has carried burdens with grace. You are a woman who inspires others without even trying. That makes you more important than most." Her lips trembled, but no words came. For once, she truly was speechless. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to her. "This is for you." Anna hesitated, then carefully opened it. Inside was an application form for the community center she had visited, along with a note. "Training and support fully covered. Start when you're ready. The future is yours." Anna's hand flew to her mouth. She shook her head in disbelief. "Daniel, I can't accept this. It's too much," he looked at her calmly. "You can. Because it's not a gift, it's an investment in you. I don't want anything back except for you to believe in yourself." Her tears flowed freely now. She clutched the envelope to her chest, her heart pounding with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You've changed my life." Daniel's smile was warm. "Don't thank me. Live the life you deserve. That will be the greatest thanks." Anna turned back to the city lights, her vision blurred by tears. She realized she was standing on the same kind of hill Daniel once had, making promises to herself. Only this time she wasn't alone. She had someone who believed in her. She whispered almost too softly, "I don't know why, but you make me believe I can do more." Daniel nodded gently. "That's because you can. And one day you won't need me to remind you." Anna let out a shaky laugh through her tears. "You've left me speechless more times than I can count." Daniel chuckled softly. "Then I've done my job." They stood side by side in silence, watching the city below. For Anna, the lights no longer seemed far away. They seemed reachable, as if her life had finally opened a door she never knew existed, and for the first time in her life, she didn't just feel like a cleaner or a survivor. She felt like Anna, The woman who had been humiliated but who rose with dignity, found strength, and discovered her worth. She was no longer invisible. She was alive, and her story had only just begun.